There was a report yesterday on SuperTalk.fm that reports that Southern Miss is moving toward hiring. I don't want to put words in the mouth. I want to read it exactly as it was written. Charles Huff was expected to be the next football coach at the University of Southern Mississippi. He is the current coach at Marshall, and Marshall is playing in the Sun Belt Conference Championship game this weekend. That is a complicating factor in all of this. Let me let you hear Charles Huff in his own words from earlier today in the championship game coaches press conference.
To say I really haven't had an opportunity to accept any other jobs. Now, as always, I say when there is noise, I think that's a good thing. There is nobody calling the coaches of the 0-10 teams. There's nobody calling the coaches of the teams that are not in bowl games. There's no one calling the coaches of the teams that aren't having good seasons. So like I told the team yesterday, I addressed it with the team. With team success comes individual recognition. And that plays so for the coaches. I told them, I'm sure there are D1 schools hitting our guys up about going in the portal. And I get it. You know, it's the profession that we live in. I thank the players for even having me in the position to have interest, for having the other coaches in the position to have interest. I do think, it becomes a little bit of a sticking point because of the timing, right? There's signing day on Wednesday. So these schools that do have openings have to try and do something quick. Well, us schools that have championship football teams, we got something to do quick too. We have to prepare for this game. So that's where our focus is. I did address it with the team yesterday because obviously they read the Twitters and the boards and all of that. But I can say to you honestly and look you in the screen that I haven't taken any jobs. I haven't committed to any jobs right now. And I'm trying to figure out how in the hell are we going to stop the stretch versus ULL? That's where my main focus is.
That is Charles Huff.
Did you hear a particular phrase in that
Certainly
answer?
not denying the fact that he could very well be announced as the next head football coach at Southern Miss. But if you were expecting that announcement tomorrow or this afternoon or Wednesday, it's probably going to be a week filled with disappointment for you.
Mm-hmm.
The story at SuperTalk.net. Somebody kind of took a shot at the story earlier today. Just read what's there. After finishing the season 1-11, multiple sources inside the Marshall Athletic Department confirm that Southern Miss is expected to announce current Thundering Herd frontman Charles Huff as the school's 23rd coach. Expected to announce. Wasn't imminent. Wasn't today. It's just a story on it sounds like that's the direction that Southern Miss can go. Here's what I would warn you about. 5 days, 6 days can be a long time.
Oh, especially in coaching search land.
Especially in coaching search land. And if Marshall really wants to keep Charles Huff, now, let's be real about what we're saying here. Not if Marshall wants to keep Charles Huff from going and taking the North Carolina job. But if Marshall really wants to do whatever they've got to do to convince him to stay at Marshall and not take the Southern Miss job, they've now got a few days to try to put together a package that would entice him to stay. Southern Miss has the opportunity to continue to look at other candidates that are out there, to continue to evaluate the landscape. Because if Southern Miss has not officially offered, Charles Huff has not officially accepted, and a contract or some memo of understanding has not been signed, then the deal is not done. Even if they shook hands, even if they agreed to terms, even if they tentatively agreed to terms, even if they left on like a mutual understanding that this was going to happen. If it hasn't happened yet, there is a scenario where it doesn't happen. And that could be because of Charles Huff, could be because of Marshall, could be because of Southern Miss. Jeremy McClain might change his mind. Jeremy McClain might discover somebody else that he didn't think would be interested, is interested, and is available now, and interviews them and decides, hey, this is the way we need to go. All of those things are in play. Now, let's advance this just for a second. If Southern Miss and Charles Huff are able to get through this week with Marshall playing in the Sun Belt Championship game, Southern Miss remaining comfortable about where they are, Charles Huff remaining comfortable about how he reportedly feels about Southern Miss and this job, and they get to the finish line, then this is a phenomenal hire for the Golden Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
You poached an in-conference coach. You poached a guy with ties to the South, who has been in the South, who knows what it takes to win in the Sun Belt, who has won in the Sun Belt. You went out and identified that guy, and you courted him, and you got to the finish line. It's a great hire.
Yeah.
There's no way to know how it'll turn out. You didn't know how it was going to turn out with Will Hall. Didn't know how it was going to turn out with Monken. Didn't know how it was going to turn out with, fill in the blank. You don't know how it's going to turn out. The truth is, the Southern Miss job is a harder job than it has ever been. This is a time in college football where it is more difficult than it has ever been for Southern Miss and programs like Southern Miss to compete for players. Everybody that is able to be all in is all in. Everybody has cobbled together the resources that they have available to put toward NIL to convince players to come. All of the programs at the Group of 4 level are scouring the transfer portal, trying to find opportunities to grab guys that maybe are transferring in the name of they want to play and they're not getting the opportunity to play. But you're doing talent evaluations. It's not just up. You're also doing talent evaluations from below. You're looking at the D3 level. You're looking at the FCS level. You're saying, hey, are there players there that can help me here? You're trying to balance all of that, all while being in a more difficult conference than you've been in and trying to dig yourself out of a hole. We talked about earlier today, Mississippi State trying to dig themselves out of a hole. Southern Miss got to do the exact same thing. 1-11 is a hard hole to dig out of. But we've seen it happen before. We've seen it happen in Hattiesburg not too long ago, actually. They didn't dig out of 0-11. They dug out of, or they didn't dig out of 1-11. They dug out of 0-12. Right? I mean, the Ellis Johnson thing was followed up pretty quickly by some fun days around the Southern Miss football program. So we will see where it goes. Sports Talk Mississippi, streaming at supertalk.fm, SuperTalk TV.
This Huff thing is fascinating to me. I mean, he's coaching in a conference championship on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And from the Southern Miss perspective, safe is a word that scares people, right? Like if you're, I have a buddy that was dating a girl. They ended up breaking up, thank God, but he described her as safe. She's safe. I can trust her. Like that, it feels... No, that safe is bad in a lot of cases. Isn't this the safest hire that they can make from a hit rate perspective? Because you are watching in real time in your conference this person take them to the championship game. Like you're witnessing that right now. On top of that, like you said, coached not only in the South, but coached in Mississippi. And I know... We talk a lot about James Franklin, but coached under James Franklin, who's very good at coaching football, despite the other stuff, and Nick Saban. So you have ties to the South, you have ties to Mississippi, you have a current head coach who's winning at a high level in your own conference. The hit rate on that is higher than any Georgia assistant, any coordinator, because you are witnessing it in real time. And I mean, I know Southern Miss football is down right now. It's not because of the inability to get players, though. Look at their recruiting classes compared to the rest of the Sun Belt. Will Hall was able to get players to Southern Miss on paper, just couldn't win with them for whatever reason. So you can get players to Southern Miss. Now they're reportedly about to hire a guy that is winning in your own conference. And what a muscle flex that is, too, on top of it all. This is a message to everybody else in your league that Charles Huff, who's taking Marshall to the conference championship game, would rather coach at Southern Miss. That sends a message, a really good message for Jeremy McClain and Southern Miss people that, hey, maybe down but not out. Because out, Charles Huff wouldn't look at your job if you were out. You're just down right now.
Yeah. I was trying to find a list of coaching salaries in the Sun Belt Conference, and I'm not finding them exactly. Based on what online stuff tells us, though, Southern Miss was paying more to Will Hall, $824,000 in 2024, than Charles Huff is making at Marshall, making $755,000. So maybe there's a financial piece that makes sense here for Charles Huff. I mean, I don't think you're moving from that job to the Southern Miss job for a $55,000 raise, though. For a $75,000 raise.
Yeah. If it happens, it's unfortunate that we have to do the qualifier thing until it actually happens. But if it happens,
yeah,
I mean, you said it. I mean, you got left a hanging breaking ball and you put it into McCovey Cove, man. I mean, it just when
actually you hit it into the roost.
Into the roost.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you. Let's be accurate here.
Bring it back. Bring it back sense. Local.
Pull it back to the state of Mississippi.
I love the water splash. But that's what it would be. I mean, when we looked at the initial candidate list, it was put out. I guess Matt Zenitz put one out, and his name wasn't mentioned at first. The other candidates don't have the resume that this one does.
Somebody on the text line says $1.3 million a year.
Ooh,
if
good.
That is, if that's the deal, that's fantastic. Hey, I'm going to tell you another bonus to the Southern Miss job. It has nothing to do with the facilities, the fans, the local golf courses, although that ain't bad. Some pretty good tracks if you like to swing them in Hattiesburg. The guy that will be your boss, that's a guy I wouldn't mind working for. I'm telling you, Jeremy McClain is a good dude. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He supports his coaches. He understands that sometimes difficult decisions have to be made, and he makes those decisions. That doesn't always happen at the speed that fans want it to happen. But Jeremy McClain is, in this business, as good as they come. And he knows he's got a big job to do. He's got to try and get this thing to the finish line, whether it's Charles Huff or the whole Charles Huff thing's a smoke screen and he's trying to get to the finish line with somebody else. Whatever it is, he's doing what he thinks is best for Southern Miss football, for the players, for the fans, the school, the coaches, the whole deal. That's a guy that you want to work for.